Good morning, students. Today we're going to be going over protein synthesis part 2. Yesterday we talked about how DNA from a gene can be used to make a strand of mRNA. Today we're going to be talking about how mRNA is used by the ribosome to make an amino acid sequence. Learning objectives. You need to be able to identify the role of the ribosome in protein synthesis, identify the building blocks of proteins, use the universal genetic code chart to determine an amino acid sequence from a strand of mRNA. So if you haven't already downloaded it, make sure that you download the universal genetic code chart from today's lesson. And finally, explain why the sequence of amino acids is important to the protein. Aim. How does the ribosome use the mRNA message to build a functional protein? So don't forget, we learned yesterday that DNA can be used to make mRNA using the DNA to RNA base pair rules. mRNA, or messenger RNA, leaves the nucleus where it's built and goes to the ribosome, the site of protein synthesis. Don't forget that this message contains the information that was in the gene. So the ribosome, it's going to receive the mRNA message, and the ribosome will read the mRNA message 3 bases at a time. Once again, the ribosome will read the mRNA in groups of 3 letters at a time. Look at the mRNA below. It's been spaced out into groups of 3 so that we can think about how the ribosome will read this message. So here's the original DNA template. It's made from a sequence of DNA bases, and don't forget that this represents a gene, a sequence of DNA that can code for a protein. But the DNA is in the nucleus, and the DNA cannot ever leave the nucleus, so we need to first convert DNA into a strand of RNA. And this RNA is called messenger RNA because it's essentially a message that goes from the nucleus to the ribosome. So this is the message that will go to the ribosome, and the ribosome is going to read this message in groups of 3. So whenever I see a strand of mRNA, I actually like to put these brackets around the groups of 3 so that I can keep track of them. Okay, so once again, what is the ribosome now going to do with this message, and why is it reading it in groups of 3? You should know from the beginning of the year that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Did you know that there are 20 different amino acids? Here they are. There's 20 different amino acids. And that each protein is built from a specific combination of amino acids. Here's where the mRNA message comes in. Every 3 mRNA bases codes for 1 amino acid. The sequence of bases in the mRNA message will instruct the ribosome which amino acids are needed to build the protein. The sequence of amino acids is very important because it will determine the final shape of the protein. So as you might remember, the shape of most proteins determines their jobs. Enzymes, receptors, hormones, and antibodies are all molecules, and they're all proteins whose function depends on their shape. If there's a change in the amino acid sequence, there could be a change in the shape of the protein, and then the protein may no longer be able to perform its function. So once again, there's 20 different amino acids. So there's 20 different building blocks. It's almost like thinking about Legos. There's a bunch of different shapes to Legos and colors to Legos, and with those Legos, depending on how you join them together, you can build a lot of different things. So that's what a protein is like. It's made from a sequence of amino acids, and which amino acids you use and how many of them and in which order will give the protein its final shape. Okay, this isn't the best picture, but I do like it for a couple reasons. First of all, the big blue thing represents the nucleus, and this shows me that DNA, and particularly genes, are stored in the nucleus, and that the information from a gene can be used to make mRNA. So mRNA is produced from DNA in the nucleus. And then this mRNA leaves the nucleus and it goes to the ribosome. And you can kind of see that this mRNA like moves through the ribosome, and the ribosome will actually read 3 bases at a time. And every 3 bases codes for 1 of the 20 amino acids. So this is a nice picture down here too. We know that DNA, which is double-stranded, one of those strands can be used to make RNA, and that RNA goes to the ribosome and it's once again read 3 bases at a time, and every 3 bases codes for 1 amino acid. And there are 20 different amino acids. But the mRNA sequence will tell me which amino acids will be part of that protein. And here's another nice picture. We have the ribosome. We have an mRNA message. The ribosome is reading the message 3 bases at a time. And you don't need to know what this yellow tRNA molecule is, but you should see that amino acids are being brought to the ribosome, and that the ribosome is sort of joining them together in this chain. So these stand for 1 of the 20 amino acids. The point being, the ribosome reads the mRNA and it joins amino acids together in a specific sequence based on the mRNA code. Okay, so how do I know which of the 20 amino acids the ribosome will code for if I'm given an mRNA sequence? Do I have to memorize all the amino acids? No. And once again, you should have this chart downloaded right now because we're going to go over how to use it. So, to determine which amino acid a group of 3 mRNA bases codes for, you must use the Universal Genetic Code chart, which is this thing. So what amino acid does AUU code for? So once again, if the ribosome reads the sequence AUU and the mRNA, well, which of the amino acids will it code for? These abbreviations in here, those stand for amino acids. So once again, the mRNA is AAU. First, I'm going to look in the A row, because my first base is A. Then I'm going to look in the U column. And from here, these 2 boxes meet here. I see that AUU codes for ILE, which stands for isoleucine. It's one of the 20 amino acids, but you can just call it ILE. Okay. So what amino acid would the mRNA sequence GAC code for? So my first step is to look in the G row, and then to look in the A column. And GAC codes for the amino acid ASP. ASP stands for aspartic acid. That is one of the 20 amino acids. So let's practice with this big version here, just so we can once again see what's going on. If the ribosome reads the sequence CAU, because it reads it in groups of 3, which amino acid will that code for? Okay, my first base is C, so I go to the C row. My second base is A, I go to the A column, and I can see that CAU codes for HIS, which stands for one of the 20 amino acids. GCU, if the ribosome reads this, which amino acid will it join to the amino acid sequence? First base is G, second base is G. GCU codes for gly. And you don't have to put them in capital letters like they are in here. I actually personally like to write them lowercase, but it doesn't matter. One more example, UUA. Which amino acid will this mRNA base sequence code for when the ribosome reads it? First base is U, second base is U. UUA stands for leucine, which is an amino acid. And CGU. The first base is C, the second base is G. CGU stands for arginine. Now here's a great joke. Pirate ribosome, arg! As you can see, this ribosome is reading the sequence CGU, CGU, CGU over and over and over again. And CGU codes for the amino acid arg. Argy matey. So this represents the ribosome. The mRNA sequence is moving through it 3 bases at a time. And this represents a growing chain of amino acids. And these amino acids were coded for by this mRNA sequence. In real life, no, we would never have the same amino acid over and over and over and over again. But this is just a joke because pirates say arg. Okay. So let's do one more example. So this represents an mRNA message that came from a DNA sequence in the nucleus. This mRNA message will go to the ribosome and it will be read 3 bases at a time. So let me see what these groups of 3 code for. CAU codes for the amino acid HIS. ACA codes for the amino acid THR. When the ribosome reads GUG, it's going to code for the amino acid VAL. Okay. And that's it. So let's see if we understand all the learning objectives. I tried to do that pretty quick, so I don't bore you to death. Okay, identify the role of the ribosome in protein synthesis. Well, the ribosome will read the mRNA message 3 bases at a time. At a time. And when it does this, it will code for a specific sequence of amino acids. So it reads the mRNA 3 bases at a time and builds a chain of specific amino acids in whatever the sequence or whatever sequence the mRNA tells it to. Identify the building blocks of proteins. We just said it. Amino acids. And don't forget there are 20 different amino acids. Can you use the universal genetic code chart to determine an amino acid sequence from a strand of DNA? That's what we did right here. We were given an mRNA sequence. We looked up 3 bases at a time on the universal genetic code chart, and we came up with a sequence of amino acids, which is represented by this growing chain coming out of the ribosome. And explain why the sequence of amino acids is important to the protein. The sequence of amino acids will determine the shape of the protein. And that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. How does a chain of amino acids turn into a specific protein with a specific shape and a specific job? Okay, that's it for today. Once again, you can hit me up on Zoom, on Remind. You can leave a comment here. You can message me in Jupiter. But please complete the pod. And of course, if you have any questions, even if you're taking the pod, please reach out to me. Tell me, I don't understand this one, or something like that. And I'm more than happy to help you all day long, 24/7, unless I'm not looking at my phone. But I usually am. Okay, go get your work done. Bye, guys.